There's the second definition, or the second sets of ideas that revolve around this notion of the family. Those involve statistical definitions. There are two big websites which will be useful as you go through this unit when you start to do your research. The Australian Bureau of Statistics, the ABS, and the Institute for Family, National Institute for Family Affairs. I was looking at it this morning and now I've forgotten. My apologies. But both of these sites will give you an enormous number of statistics about how many marriages, what age people married, how many children they have, and so on. The family, despite which, well, we'll talk about that in a bit. I was going to say private and public. We'll talk about that in the next slide. But in this one, the definition in Australia, the family is defined from the point of view of statistics, that is to count how many people are here, what the population of Australia is and how many children being born and so on. The family is defined as two or more people related by blood in step relations or by adoption. So your family members might just be your brothers and sisters, for example. And obviously this also, so it can be a small group or it can be quite a large group. But the definition is this blood relation, which is interesting. It leaves out, it sets aside altogether the idea of mothers and fathers specifically. It becomes just a blood relation. The Australian Bureau of Statistics, which describes the household family as, and this is more for things like what incomes people earn and how much tax people pay and so on, all these other statistics. The people who live, a household family is one of people who live together in a single household. So, of course, this may not even mean there are children and parents and biological relationships and so on. So, I mean, there are, even within those four dot points, there are very different ways of thinking about this thing called the family. About statistically, you can think about whether people are blood related or not, or whether they're living in houses. So we're just getting more and more complicated.
I wonder if third children count.
Sorry?
I wonder if third children count. There's a lot of people that just have lots and lots of little dogs or something.
Sorry.
I'm wondering if it's a family, like if there's like a couple who have lots of little dogs, or like a person who has like a
dogs.
Pet, something like that, like fur children, because people can take them pretty seriously.
Because what I wanted to do, actually, and I could not find it, you know the cards that have the stick families, my family, everywhere.
They've got horses and chickens.
And they've got, that's what I mean, they include everything. Fish, chickens, horses, dogs, cats, as well as the children and all the rest of it. So, well, yes, I mean, some people take very seriously the notion of fur children. And
Have you offended if you said it wasn't a family?
Yes, definitely. Yes, if you want to look at if you want to understand just how seriously people take the relationship between themselves and their pets, you look on the in memoriam sites, which are bound. Do you guys know Peter Corrigan, my colleague, who teaches the first year? You may, if you had done first year sociology, you'd know him, but he also does culture, a sociology of culture. He wrote this wonderful paper, this research called on in memoriam, pet memoria online. And he called it Dead Dogs in Space, the paper he gave, which was the most wonderful title. But basically what he's doing was counting, was assessing and analysing the images of dead animals in these in memoriam sites. And there are many of them. And they're, people play music and they do eulogies to these cats and so on. So yes, fur children are a fundamental part, I think, of social life now. Interesting. So I don't know what the legal rights of fur children are. I suspect if they come into wills, then they do have rights if they're left money, and many people do this as well. But as you were pointing out earlier, that by the definition of what a family is varies by state, and depending on the context, as we saw earlier, there's also, I thought this was interesting, that Medicare, which is your medical and governs your medical expenses and your pension, defines a couple of, as a family as a couple living together with children, whether they're married or not. So, depending on the context and the purpose of this category of the classification, if the purpose is simply to manage benefits, then it's much more straightforward to say, well, it's just a family, whether they're married or not. If the purpose is to maintain a norm and a value which puts sort of heterosexual marriage above heterosexual cohabitation, or two parents above one parent, and there are plenty of messages around like that, then you will find possibly that the definitions in these institutions vary. In November 2012, I just saw the latest attempt to give gay and lesbian couples the right to marry in Australia was rejected, but was accepted in France and pending the House of Lords in Britain, both by Conservative governments. So there's the family, the legal status of the family can vary depending on the context as well. So what constitutes the family by who's in it, and what constitutes the family by what legal rights they have, varies depending on what the purpose of those rules are. Now we come to the much more sociological version of what is, why sociological is the family, because the family serves a function in society. So that is to say, if something serves a function for society, we need to understand what purpose do the ideas we have about the family serve in the social world we live in. We've already looked at the sort of primary heterosexuality, gender division within the family that, if you like, functions to support the primary role of heterosexuality as a way of expressing your sexual identity and as a way of life. The family inadvertently, especially because they will not legalise gay or lesbian marriage, the family is by definition heterosexual heteronormative institution. That is to say, it underpins and justifies the primacy of heterosexuality and the sort of secondary status, if you like, of non-heterosexual relationships. So it's a building block idea. It functions in that respect to support heterosexuality as the primary institution in society. Its function, and part of that heterosexuality is, of course, this reference to the fact that the family is a natural institution. People will say, and you'll hear people say, throughout history there have always been families. It's a natural way of living. And part of what underpins that idea of nature, because there's more than one, is the fact that your families, within families, children are reproduced. That families, and from the point of view of society, the ordering of society, the bringing up of children in a sort of what society sees as an acceptable way, is achieved more effectively in a heterosexual family, with mother, father, children being supported as individuals, but also by their lives supporting the norms of society.